month break in between episodes. Anybody who's been following me will know that the last episode I released was on, I believe, March 5th. So it's been some time. I've been rather busy in the meantime. Just a quick update on myself. I got married in July of this year. And just everything surrounding that, with the preparations for the wedding, getting married, going on honeymoon, getting moved in, adjusting to the new lifestyle of living with someone and sharing my life with someone. It's been a very different experience. But alas, now I am back. I'm prepared to record some more podcast episodes. I figured this time around I would record a blog post that I wrote back in April about plot twists that work and why some plot twists work better than others. It's not too deep of a subject, it's just pretty straightforward narrative kind of discussion, but it's one that I enjoyed writing and one that I got some good reception on when I wrote it, so hope you all enjoy. At the time of writing, I had just rewatched Rian Johnson's murder mystery Glass Onion with my then fiance and a couple of friends of mine who hadn't seen it yet. It was the second time that I'd watched it, and for a film with so many small, intricate details and plot twists interwoven throughout, it was a blast getting to go through and see what small things I had missed out on the first time around, even while knowing how things would eventually play out. This got me thinking about plot twists and narrative unexpectedness in general. There's nothing that gets the internet abuzz with opinion and commentary quite like a good, or bad, plot twist. There are countless lists counting down the best and worst plot twists in cinematic history, each trying to dissect what makes a plot twist good or bad. Indeed, while they can certainly help to make a movie unpredictable and shocking for an audience, they can also make or break the film that they're in depending on how well they're executed and thought out. What exactly is it that makes the plot twist good or bad then? Why are some movies considered some of the best of all time for how unexpected they manage to be, while other movies somehow spoil the entire viewing experience with a bad twist? It's hard to pinpoint exactly what the reasons are, but I'll try my best to examine some broad examples of different plot twists that have worked, and some that haven't as much. Much of what I discuss today will be very opinionated, as I can only really judge what works in a plot twist for me, which may or may not line up with the opinions of others. I'll also try speaking in as broad of terms as I can in order to avoid spoilers for particular movies, though I'll end up using some more specific examples, and as I'll later reveal, even the foreknowledge that a plot twist exists in a movie can spoil some of the fun of watching it. I'll start off by discussing one of the most time-tested and common, for better or for worse, plot twists that has existed in narratives, the "it was all a dream" twist. The story runs its course, and it turns out that part, most, or all of the narrative that we have seen is either a dream that one of the characters was having or some deranged delusion brought about by a broken mind. The plot twist is so common that it is easily one of the most maligned and mocked of all time. Commentators are quick to jump on stories that try to explain away the events that were depicted as not actually happening in narrative, immediately writing them off as tired, cliched, and a cop-out. For a large extent, I can understand why this is the case. We, as the audience for stories, already know that what we're watching or reading or experiencing is a work of fiction. To be told in the end that it was a work of fiction even within the work of fiction seems like placing yet another barrier between the story and the participation of the audience. We want to see fleshed out imaginative worlds, not someone else's fake idea of the same. There are occasions, however, when such a twist can work. If it is made plain earlier on in the narrative that the story is occurring within someone's mind, it can give lots of insight to whatever themes or symbolism the storytellers wish to create about the subject. Movies like The Wizard of Oz and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari have both used this technique to a certain extent. There are also movies like American Psycho and Joker, where it's left unclear whether or not the events are actually occurring, casting the lead character's sanity into question. There are times when this sort of twist can work. It just has to be thought out and woven into the fabric of the story. Another common twist that has seen a lot of popularity in the past decade, especially in Disney films, is the surprise villain. The character who seemed trustworthy throughout the story, but who turns out to be conniving behind the hero's back the entire time. Frozen, Zootopia, The Incredibles 2 all have this twist in common. Like the "it was all a dream" twist, this has often been derided by online commentators. I can echo their sentiments much more this time. as it seems like the kind of plot twist has less variety and more problems that come up as a result. It's been pointed out already, but many films that do this lose out on having a fleshed out villain by essentially setting up two completely different characters who switch place 2/3 of the way into the story. Deception is a fair play for villainous characters, one that can make them come across as even more despicable, but it becomes tiresome and dated very quickly when it's overdone. Honestly, I'd prefer a story where two people are legitimately strong comrades for much of the story, and instead of one turning out to be a villain all along, they're driven apart by conflicting ideals and beliefs. This way, the eventual villain becomes much more sympathetic and understandable than if the rug is pulled out from under the audience. There aren't a lot of examples of this sort of storyline that I can think of, but the Star Wars prequel trilogy and the video game Suikoden 2 both employ it very well. So, we've seen two examples of specific plot twists that can be done well or poorly, but there are far too many other examples to go through each of them one by one. So many films have plot twists that can either make or break their narratives, with creative varieties to explore for days. Because of this, I'm shifting my focus a bit more broadly from here on out, from specific plot twists to the ways in which plot twists affect the narratives that they're in. Looking back to Glass Onion for a moment, as a mystery film, it's expected that there will be numerous twists and turns throughout to keep the audience guessing on a first viewing. As I said right from the outset, though, I just watched the movie for a second time and found it just as enjoyable as the first time I saw it. This, I think, is one of the biggest keys to any twist, big or small, in any narrative, and reveals something that many other twists get wrong. Whatever twists the story contains, they should add to the experience, and the experience as a whole should be enjoyable on its own, even if there weren't any plot twists to speak of. Take, for example, the recent horror comedy Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I haven't properly seen the film, but having watched the CinemaSins video recapping it, I got more or less the gist of the experience. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is a good example of a film with a plot twist that completely reframes everything that we know about the events of the film, one that does manage to make the whole film better by its inclusion with how funny and plausible it is. However, part of the reason I haven't actually gone out and watched the movie myself is that, while the plot twist may make it fun to look back and discuss what it means for the themes of the film, it doesn't make the rest of the film a more pleasant time to watch. The film is still mostly just an hour and a half of annoying Gen Z stereotypes screaming at each other in a dimly lit house. A film that gets closer to fulfilling the potential of the best sort of plot twist is Jordan Peele's 2019 film Us. It too has a plot twist that greatly changes the way the audience sees a movie, its premise, its characters, and especially its themes and symbolism. It's a brilliant sleight of hand on top of an already very well crafted and suspenseful film, making it an improvement on our previous example. I could actually see myself rewatching Us at some point and getting more out of it. All the same, I'd actually say that it's maybe the Jordan Peele film that I have the least desire to revisit due to its structure and occasional tendency to lean into slasher film cliches. One of the films that, in my opinion, best demonstrates a film standing well on its own while also featuring a plot twist that greatly changes the perception of the preceding story is M. Night Shyamalan's breakout film, The Sixth Sense. When I first watched the movie many years ago, I went in with the expectation of getting a tense movie with one of the best plot twists of all time. I tried going in as blind as I could to avoid spoiling the movie for myself, and started watching with anticipation of having my mind blown. It turned out, however, that even knowing that there was a plot twist was enough to give the big secret of the movie away for me. After the very first scene, I came up with a theory as to what the twist would be, and as the movie progressed, I became more and more certain that I was right. Lo and behold, I was, and I walked away disappointed that I had just guessed one of the supposedly greatest plot twists in cinema history. I didn't rewatch the film again until Halloween of last year, when I watched it again with my then fiancée, now my wife. I figured it would be a fairly spooky ghost story for the holiday, yet tame enough that she wouldn't be frightened off, like the first film that we tried watching. What I found as I watched The Sixth Sense again, freed from expectation and with full knowledge of what that plot twist was a haunting, atmospheric, emotional movie with great writing, directing, and acting. The plot twist still served the plot, but it didn't distract me from it as it had before. The movie still stood strong enough on its other merits that I had a much better time watching it. The point I'd like to make with all of this is that, while shock value and unexpectedness in a story can bring a good deal of enjoyment, it's a type of enjoyment that goes away with a single viewing. The more important aspect of storytelling is making a story that is entertaining and engaging enough on its own to be worthy of further viewings. Those are the stories that we return to time and time again. the stories that end up being much more timeless than those that exist merely to surprise. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Meteoriform podcast. If you want to check out my blog, go to meteoriformed.wordpress.com. And until next time, keep seeing.